Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening. So, the questions are have you found yourself sitting or crying in the car before and after work? Do you find yourself managing constantly microaggressions at work? Or do you find yourself suffering from anxiety or depression or trauma from the workplace? If you answered yes to any of the above, this is the conversation for you. Today, we are talking about identifying, releasing, healing, and transitioning out of toxic job environments. But before we get into all of that, if you don't know who I am, if you stumble upon this channel by mistake, my name is Yvonne McBride. This is Yvonne McBride Lit Life. And in this space, we motivate, we inspire, we give resources to women of the African diaspora who want to transition, change their life, and live the life of their dreams. Today, we have a very special guest. Marissa Price, please introduce yourself for the people.
Hey everyone. Yes, I'm Marissa Price. I am a social worker. I'm a healing practitioner working with sensitive Black women to heal, recover from trauma, reclaim our authenticity. I also have a community called Black Women Freelancers, as freelancing has been my pathway out of a toxic, traumatic work experience, and also allowed me to move abroad. And I'm also the co founder of the upcoming Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women, happening May 16th through 18th, with Dr. Kamani Norrington Sands of Lifting As We Climb Consulting on YouTube. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you for reaching out to me. Marissa, Ms. Price, has been on a world tour of promoting this summit, this wonderful summit, the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. We are here to discuss this, but we're also here to help anyone who is not satisfied in their job, even if you love your job, but you want to transition out of it into something new, into something maybe not better, but something different. This is the conversation for you. We hope that you engage. We hope that you ask any questions that you have. Marissa, I call her to the healing whisperer. She's one of the Black women YouTube healing gurus and that I follow. And I'm so delighted that she is here. I see that we have some people in the room. If you will please introduce yourself. Black people, we speak when we come into the room. So do that for me, please, so that we can acknowledge you and thank you for being here. If you have any questions for Ms. Price, please put them in the chat so that we can get to them. Okay, so we're going to jump into it. Also, please like and share this video. I have invited a few of my personal friends and family members who have dealt with trauma in the past on their jobs, who are thinking about getting out, who have been laid off recently because of all the chaos that is happening in the world. To this chat for specific reasons, for them to know that there are options, that not to despair, that there's always something we can look forward to and inspire to. So, saying that, Marissa, please tell us what led you to this healing journey of yours, this wonderful creation of this summit. What was the inspiration behind it? How did you find your? We have just some taboos. Find your passion. Find your passion for helping Black women transition out of these toxic jobs.
Yeah, so I found myself in a very toxic, traumatic work environment. And this started probably in, was it 2021, I think?
Okay.
So yeah, it was a period of me trying to put the information together myself, like what was happening to me, because I was actually excelling in the role that I was in, right? So I had like on paper, everything looked perfect, right? I had the right education. And I thought this was my dream job going into it, entering right out of graduate school into a really kind of prominent role, and having that pressure on me, right? Realizing that I was the first Black person to hold this role, and
Okay.
I felt like I had to stick with it. That was part of it. And also being deeply committed to the mission. So I was working in economic development on getting capital to Black business owners. And we know like the systemic issues that exist within the US that keep a lot of entrepreneurs right out of these spaces. And so I was researching them, I was studying them, actually working on policy issues, trying to get, funding into businesses. And it was a process of me realizing that I was going from pet to threat, coined by three Black women professors, Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps, Dr. Johnson Bailey, um, who coined this term that a lot of us have found words for what we're experiencing. So
Okay.
we come in with the skills, the abilities, right? Like I said, like everything on paper prepared me for this job. And then coming across someone else who became my supervisor, who became, I think, threatened, I guess, now looking back in retrospect, by my knowledge base, by the fact that I'm a truth teller, right? So we're often brought into these roles as Black women to, I don't know, save an organization. I don't know if that, but that's coming up for me. Being asked to take on this role after the murder of George Floyd, working in
Okay.
economic development, right?
Okay.
And so I think the way that I don't know, the way that I tell the truth, I don't know, came into friction with whatever she had in mind. And so the organization was not really ready for the job that they hired me to do. I think that's really the basis of it. Um, and so it was a process of me thinking that something was wrong with me, right? So leading down a spiral of anxiety, depression, trying to figure out how to do this role correctly, without really being given the adequate guidance about what I was supposed to be doing.
So was this your first job out of grad school? This is your first official
Mhm.
career job?
So not my first official career job. So out of graduate school, before that, I did
Okay.
work in the banking sector, and then
Okay.
I went back to graduate school for two-ish years, and then that was my first job out of graduate school. Hmm.
Okay. So let's get into you said from pet to threat.
Hmm.
What were you experiencing specifically that made you feel like, this was something other than, as a person from Generation X, right? We're told that, it's the job. Work is
Hmm.
not supposed to be fun. You go to work like, um, you have to work twice as hard, right, to get half as far. How did you identify that you were experiencing something that wasn't normal, um, as opposed to this is just a work environment?
Hmm. I think it was the microaggressions.
Okay.
So experiencing that from the person who became my supervisor, right? So when I led these board meetings and stuff like that. So she would try to talk over me while I was presenting. And just having like, again, going within myself because I'm an introvert first. So I very introspective, um, trying to be like, am I doing something wrong? Am I triggering her in a certain way? Do I need to speak more in a different tone? And when you start to go down that spiral, it can be never ending, right? Because the problem is not you in these environments. And I think having that experience, the many microaggressions, trying to teach people about issues constantly, which is emotionally draining,
Right.
right? Because these issues also impact me. So as Black women, like in these roles, in DEI style roles, where we're trying to make changes, we often have to bring in our lived experience into the work that we do to convince other people that these things are actually an issue, which adds another layer of trauma,
And
right,
anxiety.
that we're
Right.
experiencing. Yeah.
Right.
So all these things, and then once I began to realize the microaggressions, I was in therapy too, so she was able to reflect back to me that that was happening because I had entered therapy thinking that the issue was me, right, and really like trying to seek out ways to conform to this environment versus realizing it wasn't the environment for me and that I could take myself out of it. Um, so once I began to share with her, right, the different behaviors that this person was exhibiting, um, she was able to reflect that back to me. And then I was also in Dr. Kamani's chats
Okay.
too. So that's how we met, who is the co host of Job Liberation Virtual Summit. I was in her chats, literally absorbing information from other Black women who were sharing their stories, while I was going through this, while I was experiencing excelling at my role, and then behind the scenes having someone try to break me down, right? It's a very confusing experience. Um, and so having that information, having the term that Dr. Kamani shared on her channel, which I had never heard before, from pet to threat, connecting my experience, what I was going through, to other Black women's experiences, and realizing that it wasn't me, kind of freeing myself of that. That's how I kind of led to kind of gathered the acorns along the way, I guess, of
Yeah.
information to be able to have the understanding of what I was in. And so therapy, being in community was so essential, and externalizing the treatment that I was experiencing.
And let's talk about so you said a lot there. Let's break it down to just the messaging that you were getting, right?
Mhm.
You said that you were hired to do this specific. You wouldn't be hired if you didn't have the qualifications, right? You
Yes.
wouldn't be hired if you didn't have the expertise that they were looking for.
Yeah.
So, that goes to, well, then why, you want to look into deeper. If you weren't allowed, or if you were questioned every step that you tried to do your job, then what were you really brought here for? Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and the messaging that Black women experience in the workplace or just in society, that we are supposed to just be the carriers of these burdens and
Yeah.
not complain, and do your job regardless, and just to bear down and
Mhm.
keep going when you are being harmed.
Mhm.
What made you say this is not normal, this is not something I should be enduring, and this is something that needs to be changed? Did you go to them before you tried to leave? Did you
Yes,
try
I did.
to rectify the
Mhm.
situation? Like, what was
Yeah.
that before you exited?
Yeah, I did. So I laid it all out in an email, actually, about the how I was being harmed in
Yes.
the role, and that did not alleviate what I was experiencing, right? And again, that takes a certain level of emotional labor to even lay out what's happening to you, to
Yes.
explain to the person who's who's doing the behavior what they're doing, the impacts that it's having. And so I did try to do that, right? And how I knew, I think it was a combination of being in spaces where people continue to reflect back to me that it was not me.
Okay.
Because had I continued to go down the spiral, and I was deep in the spiral, right,
Okay.
of picking myself apart, because I was so rigid about this having to be my dream job, because it was what I studied for, it was what I had researched, that I poured so much of education, time, internships into this specific path. That once I found myself there, right, experiencing this, it was so like disillusioning. Like what is happening? It was confusing. Um, and so being in spaces where we are sharing our stories, like YouTube was so essential, right? The power of transparency,
Mm-hmm.
of us sharing things that have kind of been taboo in
Mm-hmm.
the past to talk about openly. We're able to see and externalize the treatment that we're experiencing. No, you should not experience microaggressions at work. That should not be an expectation. You should not be talked over, right? You should not be asked to take on multiple roles outside of your job description.
Okay.
Something I did not know before I entered into the workplace. Being young, in this position, right? So it kind of felt like my life was falling apart,
And
right?
and and again, it's not even youth. It's that we are, especially, I don't know, I think millennials are better at identifying or just saying F this job, right? Or identifying like, this is not right, I'm not going to stay here. Um, or advocating for themselves. Generation X were taught to, you get a good job with good benefits, you work this job, you live and die for this job, right? So for you to even think about, and you shoulder what comes with the job, you shoulder what comes to the job. Is work is not supposed to be fun. You do this to make money so you can pay your bills, right? um but when you get into, no, this is harming me, like if you're feeling physically emotionally, mentally drained every day, we were taught just to toil through that, and
Mhm.
that you cannot advocate for yourself, and that you don't leave that good paying job until you find another good paying job, right? So for you to be able to identify this, and for others to be able to come together as community to say this is not right, you don't have to endure this any longer, you can make a choice, that's something really powerful, and that's a message that Black women today still need to hear and receive and see every day.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, when it gets to the point that your job is harming your mental health, right? We've seen like the real ramifications of this, like Black women losing their lives, right, prematurely,
Yes.
from being in jobs. So we see that it's not something that's small, especially when we are in these roles, trying to advocate for change,
Yes.
again, which requires a lot of emotional labor that can lead to these spirals. When you have someone questioning, right, your authority, what you're sharing that you know to be true, that's based on your lived experience, that's another layer, right, to it. And a lot of us are in DEI style roles, right, advocating for issues that we see are glaring within this society. Um, and just to speak to that, like we see the DEI, the rollback of DEI,
Mm-hmm.
right, for
Mm-hmm.
people having poured their life's work, their hearts into addressing these issues, and for the jobs just to be ripped away like they're nothing. There's a level of grief that comes with that too.
Mm-hmm. And grief, shame, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Doubt. We
Yes.
internalize a lot of time when things don't work out, we internalize that as failure, right? Somehow
Hmm.
we are the problem. Like you said, we're the failure. If I just do this, it will make it better. If I just change this, if I just get this, more education, if I get this
That was
certificate,
me.
all of this,
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
fix ourselves to
That's true.
conform to what this work environment is. Meanwhile, this is a system. They want us continuously on the hamster wheel,
Yes.
so that we ignore our creativity, so that we ignore our talent, so that we keep them with the power, so that we use all of our energy to make their businesses successful, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and
Yeah.
if we stay on this hamster wheel, we can't. Then we can't think outside the box. We can't think for
That's true.
ourselves. We can't live a full life outside of their job. This is what they want us to continue to do. And I'm so grateful for
Hmm.
this summit, for you all to creating this summit so that you can show Black women that there's another choice. You don't
Yes.
have to continuously run this hamster wheel. We're going to get into some of the sessions of the summit. But before we do, I want to thank Alicia. Hello, Alicia,
One of our
for saying
speakers.
hello and for being here. We have a few other people in the room. Please say hello so I can thank you for coming, and for showing up. But hi, hello, Kiyoka. Hi, lovely. Um, for people who can't identify, for people who I know who doesn't really feel like, okay, this job is toxic, right? What are some of the ways that toxicity shows up in your life that this is not right? I need to at least look at this and feel, mm, investigate if I should leave, investigate if I should say something. Like, what are those telltale signs that we should look for?
So I think some of the first ones are body signals, which we have been conditioned to ignore so often.
Yes. Yes.
Um, as you said, we're just taught that this is what you expect when you're in a work environment, right? To be harmed at a certain level.
Yes.
But our bodies give us these signals to as information to tell us, right, to exit out of this environment. And so the longer we suppress things like appetite changes,
Mm-hmm.
right, changes in sleep, feeling like you don't want to engage in the activities that you used to engage in, feeling like you're not skilled at all, which I have heard a lot from Black women in toxic jobs, feeling like the skills that you came in with just kind of disappeared
Mm.
and they don't exist, which can leave us to feel stuck where we are. So if you are experiencing, yeah, people, like I said, microaggressions
Mm-hmm.
left and right, having your sense of self challenged. Like there are people within these job environments that specifically target Black women because we come in with a level of brilliance with what we
Mm-hmm.
do, skill. We naturally tend to outshine other people without even trying, and so that triggers a level of insecurity within people. But if you're finding yourself, questioning your skills, questioning your abilities, dealing with some of the physical ramifications of being in a toxic environment, the mental health, right?
Yes.
Experiencing symptoms of anxiety, depression, sometimes even worse, as we've seen, that's your signal, right? So your body is telling you to exit as soon as you can. And Dr. Kamani and I say this often, like we advocate for making a strategy, right? A planned strategy. But if you are really being harmed to the point where you are considering something like taking your life, right, which we have heard, that is when you need to get out immediately. Um, so these things are very real. And I think with more of us sharing our experiences about being in toxic, traumatic work environments, is hopefully starting to challenge the narrative that this is normal and something that we should just expect, right? We shouldn't expect our lifespans being shortened
And
being in a job.
and
Mm-hmm.
I talk about just dealing with my mom, my aunt. They worked, they from the generation where they worked that job from they when they're 19 to when they were 60 something, right? And the stress, the everyday, I don't know, we never had conversations about what they were going through, but after they retired, um, they both passed fairly soon after retirement. And I just know that, even after my mom retired, she was like, I'll live in tent city, I'm not going back to work, right? So she was like, she was adamant about that. But just the stress that that changes your body, right?
That's right. Yes.
Changes
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
um changes the metabolism, changes things about our wellness and our health.
Yes.
If you stay on these paths, even if you make it through to the end, you don't know how long you'll have after that. And
That's
I
right.
always, I took that as an example, like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to have this experience and just put my shoulders down and go to work and
Mm-hmm.
do this and not live a full life, or not even try to live a full life, because this is what society expects from Black women.
Mm-hmm.
um but when I'll add to the side effects, right? The telltale signs. If you are having headaches, I began
Yes.
this conversation by saying, if you are constantly crying in your car, if you have to take moments throughout the day for yourself, anxiety, depression, if you are feeling isolated at work, if you are feeling left out of certain things, the microaggressions are real. They're not in your head. Um, Please find someone, this community, please reach out outside of your job, find someone who will be able to validate what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because these things are not normal,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to endure. And so I know there are a few people, on the chat who I invited here who may be shy about expressing that they're going through these things in the workplace. But please know that there are options, and we are here to provide those options. So,
Mm-hmm.
Marissa, please tell the people um, some of the sessions that you have at the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women that will help them identify first, to identify and to deal with any traumas that they are having at their job.
Mm-hmm. So the summit is May 16th through 18th, all online. So it starts off May 16th, the evening, with Coach Yolanda, who actually helped me heal from a
Hmm.
very toxic work environment. She'll be leading us through a guided meditation. Internal freedom first. So it's granting yourself permission to experience freedom,
Mm-hmm.
because so often we have been told that that's off limits to us, right? And it's really sitting with the
Yes.
truth that no, that's not for other people, that's for us, right? That's for us. So that is happening May 16th, the evening session, which will start the official summit.
Okay.
And then there are 10 talks each day, May 17th and 18th. Some of the notable sessions, I guess, Stephanie Perry will be kicking us off May 17th, Saturday, job detox. So,
Yes.
how to identify that a job is toxic, right? That it's
Mm-hmm.
draining you. And then to know that you have the power to leave, right? To make your exit strategy. If it takes you time, right? It took me a year plus of planning in
Okay.
order to implement my strategy. So, we're not telling anyone to up and leave your job if it's not the level where it's like drastically harming you, right? So taking your time, taking in the information, and we also have replays too if you need more time to absorb it. What else? Reclaiming your breath with Giovanna Maurice. So holding your breath is often a trauma response. So in
Mm-hmm.
these environments, right, we will often tense up, our bodies will become stiff, which can lead to physical illness. We'll forget to take in oxygen. And so, how can you reclaim your breath as a means to reclaim yourself? So, Giovanna will be walking us through that. Rushni Cope will be talking about Vision Your Liberation. So, it's a
Okay.
vision board workshop. If you are having trouble making your path forward, even envisioning what comes next, she'll be walking us through that, which I'm really excited about. How to actually create the vision that you're headed towards. After this environment, after you implement your exit strategy, what does your life look like after that, and allowing yourself to dream? I'll be talking about taking your power back. So, owning your skills, rebuilding your self worth, something that I've talked about on my channel before. These jobs can really do a number on our self worth, on our self esteem. And so, how do you begin to rebuild those pieces of yourself and realize that it all is not lost if you find yourself dealing with low self esteem, low self worth after being in a toxic work environment, knowing that you still have the power to take those pieces back, right, and create a new vision in life for yourself. So that is what I'll be talking about.
Okay. Let's
Alicia,
pause. Let's pause.
yeah.
Um, so let's talk about for the people who are saying, okay, I know okay, I admit I'm in a toxic job environment, right? I have these symptoms. I want to get out, but I cannot, right? I can't do it right now. I can't immediately leave. It's not pressing. I'm not thinking about, harming myself, but I have to pay my bills, right? What was that process for you? You said it took a year, right? You
Hmm.
said it
Hmm.
took a year for you to make that exiting plan. What did that process look like for you?
So that looked like looking at like the practical things like savings,
Mm-hmm.
uh, considering things like taking short-term disability, which does pay. I ended up taking 11 weeks using FMLA, which was not paid in the state that I was in.
Okay.
So figuring out my budget, figuring out my savings, how I can make this work, getting a plan together to become a freelancer,
Mm-hmm.
which was my means out of a toxic job. So once I had my strategy together, this is how long I need to stay in order to have a cushion in between 9 to 5 work, basically, in freelancing. Once I had that number, I knew how long I had to stay before I executed
Okay.
my
Yep.
my plan. And so from there, I pivoted into freelancing. During that time of exit planning, I was able to kind of build a business strategy, I guess, of clients I wanted to work with. So continuing my work of getting capital to Black owned businesses, I wanted to work with Black women digital entrepreneurs
Okay.
because there are so many of us in this space, right, that are creating our own things. Um, and just really in the token of freedom, right, of
Yes.
self-reclamation, of
Yes.
offering coaching, of offering digital products, all those things. So all of those things kind of intrigued me. So knowing that I wanted to, yeah, continue the work I had done with Black women digital entrepreneurs. So I began attracting clients. So putting my offer out there, I started as a virtual assistant when I first became a freelancer, working with Dr. Kamani, Rashida Dow, Sandra from Lack to Legacy, Kathy Hampton Rushney was one of my VA clients too, who's now a speaker at the summit. So within that exit plan period, understanding my finances,
Yes.
savings, so the practical things,
Yes.
how long I needed to stay, how many paychecks I needed to reach the number that I felt comfortable with before I was able to pivot into freelancing. During that process, also determining once I started freelancing, who do I want to work with? What skills do I already have? What area of entrepreneurship, I guess, really interested me? And then executing on that plan. So, yeah.
Okay, so what I hear you saying was that you didn't leave immediately, right? You put a plan
Mm-hmm.
together. That plan
Mm-hmm.
included looking at your finances,
Mm-hmm.
looking at how much money you would have to make. You also
Mm-hmm.
pivoted before you left, started
Mm-hmm.
freelancing, started doing
Yes.
something on the side,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And also creating, looking into your network, right? Started creating your network. So,
Mm-hmm.
for people watching, what sessions in the summit will help them do all of these things?
That's a great question. So day two is really like the strategy
Okay.
planning day. So after day one, which is reclaiming yourself, we have all the practical strategy
Yes.
sessions. So we have Krishan Wright talking about how to make money from anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
passport to prosperity. If you are interested in pursuing something like traveling abroad, moving abroad, which I have done. I'm really excited for that session. How do you use what you already have, your skills, to make money literally from anywhere, which we
Yes.
have seen other people do, right, very freely. But it's kind of been told as off limits to us, again, given the foundations of the US, Black
Or that we
women's
don't have any
labor.
skills, or that we don't have any
Yeah,
skills. If you have a job,
yeah,
you have skills. Like,
that's right.
so
Mm-hmm,
the summit will help you identify your skills and how
mm-hmm.
to pivot and market your skills so that you can get
Yes.
your own clients, right?
Yes, yes. We also have, yes, scrolling through here, Rashida James from Black on the Job, which is a
Mm-hmm.
resume writing organization. So if you're scared about how do you update your resume, if you want to pivot into another traditional job, 9 to 5, whatever route that you want to take, we have a session for you. So she'll be talking about updating your resume, owning your skills. Her session is called Skills Pay the Bills, right? So just as you mentioned, right, the reason that the job hires you is due to your skills,
Yes.
right? Sometimes I feel like we lose sight of that, but your skills are yours too. You own them and you can take them anywhere. You can take them to another job, freelancing, and also giving yourself permission to explore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Different areas that may interest you versus, again, being so rigid and
Mm-hmm.
feeling like you have to stay on a path. Kind
Yes.
of the sunk cost fallacy, right? That you've invested so much time, energy into this that now you just have to stay, releasing yourself from that. No, you don't have to. There are so many options that await you. Mm-hmm. Let's see, Libria Jones will be talking about how to find remote work. Again,
Okay.
if you're interested in pursuing a 9 to 5 more traditional role, that session will be helpful for you. Rebrand and Rise, how to build your personal brand, which I'm really excited about. Patrice Williams Lindo of Career Nomad will be talking about that. So knowing that even if you're in a traditional job, that you still have a brand that you can build, you can leverage your network, right? You can update your social media profiles in the event that you do want to pursue freelancing, even part-time while you're still in the role, knowing that you have the freedom to do that. Because again, your skills are yours. So that session may be helpful. And then Kim with the Gems will be talking about how to monetize your talents, your gifts to generate income as well on Sunday.
So there are over 20 presenters and
Mm-hmm.
sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not saying quit your job and flounder, right? Flounder around. This is going to help you create your plan. This is going to help you either, just like she said, either if you want to get another job, or if you want to
Mm-hmm.
start freelancing, or if you want to, whatever you want to do, become an entrepreneur. This summit is going to help you work it out. They have brilliant speakers. She just named some of them. But you don't, this is all about giving you choices, right? All about giving you just expanding your view, and that you don't have to go from one toxic job to another toxic job. I have a friend, she was just laid off, a few friends who were just laid off. And they've had dreams, right? If you've had a dream, to pursue something else, to do something else, maybe take this time to consider how you want to make that work for you.
Hmm.
Instead of jumping into something else that's going to drain your energy, or something else that you're not passionate about, or something else you just pay the bills, right? Maybe, you know, take this time to reinvent yourself, as we talk about on the channel, um, to pursue some of the things that you would like to do, that you've always wanted to do. Maybe, the saying is, when things feel like it's falling apart, they're falling in place. Maybe take this opportunity to look into that, um, and attend the summit to help you get to that pathway. Um, I want to talk about also just how people who are still at the job can start healing themselves. I called you the one of the healing gurus of YouTube for Black women.
Thank you.
Um, how do we, if we're still in these environments, right? How do we not take on um, the trauma?
Hmm.
Um, how do we begin to separate ourselves from that? How do we begin to heal before we leave? We'll talk about healing after we leave, but how do we begin to heal while we're still in that workspace?
I think so. Separating your identity from your
Mm-hmm.
job is really important. I know that when I was in the job that I was in, like my identity and my job were basically this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that can create an additional layer of trauma when the job is not working out as you expected. Now all of a sudden your identity is in question.
And
And
that's
so
a that's a
before,
that's a
yeah.
well, not even American, but that's a thing. Like, if you
Hmm.
we tie ourselves to who we are is what we do, right?
Hmm.
When you
Hmm.
meet somebody, it's, oh, well, what do you do? What do you do? That's
Hmm.
the first thing, that instead of who are you, right? Instead of getting to know the
Yes.
person, we want to know what they do, so that we know what status to put them in, what caste
That's
system
right.
to put them in, how much money
Hmm.
they're making, all of that, right?
Yes.
So it's a form of how to de-brainwash yourself, right?
Hmm.
How
It's
to
true.
think of
Yes.
yourself, disconnect yourself from, you are not your job, basically.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that can be a process. Like you said,
Hmm.
it's very, very deep. And once you start to do it, you realize like all the connections, right, that have been there for so long. I
Hmm.
know this started for me in school, probably elementary school, this
Yes,
conditioning,
yes, because
right?
where does the messaging come from, right?
Hmm.
Where does the
Hmm.
messaging come from? It comes
Absolutely.
from your family. It comes from society. It comes when I did a video a few weeks ago, talking about the conditions, the what did she say? Yes, people hate when people do that. I do. But yes, yes, Kyoto.
Yes.
But we could talk about, where do our conditionings come from, right? The systems of oppression that
Hmm.
informs our indoctrinates our
Hmm.
being, right? So we have
Yes.
church, we have family, we have society, we have school. All of these things, they're telling us who we are, what we do, why you're here, and what your life should look like, basically.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you're just, like you said, from childhood, we're indoctrinated with these things, and we have to unpack these things before we can even feel, imagine a life for ourselves. You have to start unpacking these lies that we have been told, and looking at who are telling, why were we being told this, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Who does it benefit?
Who is
Yes.
benefiting? It's not
Yes.
benefiting you, because we are crying in our cars before we go to the job. It's not
Hmm.
benefiting you because you are feeling anxiety. These people are telling, they hire you, they don't respect you. It's not benefiting you. So
Hmm.
why are we being given these limiting beliefs, right?
Yes.
And how do
Hmm.
we protect ourselves from taking that on to our identities?
Yes. Hmm. That's so important. And I think being in YouTube communities has been so helpful for me in healing
Hmm.
from that myself
Yes.
and realizing that I'm a whole person. I was a whole person before I even had the job. Like it sounds so silly to say, like, of course I was. But when I was in the job, like it felt like that was it. That was who I was. Um, and yeah, just understanding the level of conditioning that's at play for
Yes.
us to believe that,
Yes.
right? And I think tapping into who you were as a child, right? Which Alicia Renice will be talking about too, like reclaiming your creativity,
Yes.
sense of play, all these things that these jobs try to rob from us.
Yes.
That can be a portal to understanding your true identity out of what you do, right? Outside of what you do, outside of the roles that you fulfill for other people, knowing that you were a whole person before you ever had that job, before you had any job.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to childhood, what did you like to do? What were your interests?
Mm-hmm.
And can this be a time for you to explore those? Because, right, this is our only life, right? It's really that serious. And we're not just here to labor for other people.
So we talked about reaching out, finding community that help you, who validates you. You said that earlier that you were in therapy for that. So when we talk
Yes.
about healing while you're still in the workplace,
Yes.
in the environment, seek therapy, right? Especially if they pay for it.
I was going to say, yeah, that's what I utilize. The employee
Yes.
assistance program.
Yes, especially if they pay for it, right?
Yeah.
Also you have I forget. I have brain fog, y'all. So the session on how to help them pay for you to leave, right? For pay for sabbatical by San Miguel, Assistant San Miguel.
Oh, Anne-Marie Archer.
Yes.
HR lady. Yes. She'll be ending
Yes.
Sundays. Yes. Yeah. If you're in a discriminatory work environment, how can you basically document what you're experiencing to then negotiate a severance package? Something I had absolutely no idea about until I began like being in these spaces. I'm like, I could have documented. And in fact, I know, like,
read
if I'm
read your benefits, read your whole benefit package. It is in there, and maybe it's in there, but listen, use the stuff that they're giving you. Use the stuff that they provide for you, because they're not going to tell you it's there, right?
They're not. No. And so I know now, like, if I'm to re-enter a traditional work environment, 9 to 5, to document what I'm experiencing from day one.
Yes.
Even if it's even on the good days, right? So you want a paper trail in the event that you need to build a case, and we actually have to like think about jobs going in like that you may potentially have to negotiate a severance agreement based on the way that they'll treat you. And so having as much documentation as possible, Anne-Marie Archer will be walking us through that, how you can utilize that, right? Negotiating a severance package to give you that cushion before your next thing, which she has helped a lot of Black women do.
If you need a break, if you're not ready to walk away, if you need a sabbatical, she's going to walk you through that. Like, reach out to Ball Girl Will Travel is her brand name.
Yes.
But she is presenting the session for that. So there are all type of ways. You don't have to stay stagnant in your job. You don't have to carry the load. You don't have to bear down and bear it. You can make change in your life. You can reclaim your power. You are the advocate. You can create the life that you want to live. There are always choices. Marissa Price and Dr. Kamani has created this great summit for you. Please look into it. The link is below in the video, but I'm also going to put it in the chat here. If you have any questions about the summit, please put them in the chat so we can get to them. So, okay. So I've identified that I'm in this toxic job place, right? I'm making my transit. I'm going to see how I can find my way out of this, putting that plan in process. What do we do? What do we do after, right? After we leave the job, right? How do we then make a living? How do we enjoy life? What comes after? What is the come after? What was the come after for you?
For me, it was transitioning into freelancing.
Okay.
So that is the path that I took, again, having built like my business plan during my exit strategy planning phase, and then entering into freelancing, entrepreneurship. That's the path that I wanted to pursue. If you want to get another job, that is absolutely, we have sessions on that too. I know that entrepreneurship is absolutely not for everyone. It is a lot, right? So just to say that. And I always say that is not for everyone. So if you are scared about how to update your resume, how to find remote work, we have sessions for that at the summit. And it's your choice, right? That's really the basis of the summit. You have all of these options before you, and the power is in your hands to decide, as you said, what path that you want your life to take. You have the ability to design your life. I know for me, that's still a concept that I'm learning, right? That I have the power within my hands to decide what I want to do, the people that I want to work with, the things that the interest that I want to delve deeper into. And so knowing that you can pivot to another job, you can pivot into freelancing, you can pivot into entrepreneurship. We have Halisi Vincent of Our Black Utopia will be talking about FIRE, financial independence, retire early. So if you are at that stage of wondering options for retirement, there's a session for you on that. There are just, the options are limitless, right? And I think spaces like Exodus Summit, which was an inspiration for me for creating this summit, has shown us that we have so many options that await us. And the things that we're taught are off limits to us are actually not. We're providing you with the practical information, the strategy. How do you get there from point A to point B? You have a dream of being at point B, but you're at point A now. And the summit really bridges that gap between A and B, helping you get there.
Okay, so I put the link in the chat. It's also below this video. So when we talk about rebranding, right? Rebranding, identifying our talents, identifying our skills so that we can take those skills and create something new. What do you say to the person, to the woman who says, well, I don't think I have any skills?
Mm-hmm. I think my session is for that person. So take your power back, own your skills, rebuild your self-worth. Oftentimes, especially having my own community of Black women freelancers, that's one of the biggest barriers to becoming a freelancer. We feel like we don't have any skills because we have been in environment after environment that has told us that we're not skilled, that someone else is more skilled than we are, more qualified, more deserving. And so it's really getting to the core of that, right? Who told you these messages and then uprooting that?
Yes.
They lied. They lied. Because
again,
how else were they able to
what,
get the job?
What this telling you, who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit you. You know you have skills, right? Where do these limiting beliefs come from?
And once you're able to identify that, that's the key, right? Because then you're able to see, oh, this person said that to me because either they were insecure, they were trying to suppress my power, they were triggered by my brilliance when I came into this space. And then you're able to make those connections and then uproot that, right? You don't need that. You know that you're skilled.
They didn't want you to outshine them, right?
Yeah.
A plethora of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I encourage people to really remember your track record. So remember all the jobs that you've had, all the times that you've pivoted, moved through fear, because fear will be present, but that doesn't mean stop the process, right? It means work through it at your own pace in safe community where we are reflecting back to you that you have the power to design your life, to create the life that you envision.
Okay, so now that we are creating or rebranding, we are reclaimed our power. How do we start we talked about the grief process earlier, right? So as we're, it's easy to say, okay, well, rebrand, pivot, do this. But if you have been in this job that has been breaking your self-identity down, your self-esteem down, how do you deal with that? You talked about grief earlier, right? What are the steps to begin to rebuild your self-esteem? It's easy to say, well, you've done it before, right? You can do it again. You know your value, but how do you tap into your value as a person and what you bring to any environment?
I think first allowing yourself to feel, what you feel. So often, I know in these job environments, we have to mask so often, so we may be disconnected from our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing yourself to feel
Mm-hmm.
disappointment, the grief, the dreams that you may have had,
Yes.
the job, um, and letting that sit, right, and being in communities, healing communities like the ones that we create, right, on YouTube, where you're able to share, listen to our stories, sharing transparently, connecting them to your own story. And I think that has had such a powerful effect for me, right? Hearing from other Black women who have been in toxic work environments, seeing how brilliant they are, being confused. How could anyone ever want you out of
Question this. Yes. Yes.
and then like me being like, oh, hold up, her experience kind of mirrors my experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's a common thread. There's literally a pattern of treatment when you hear people's stories over and over about how the ways in which we're treated in these environments, and it's happening globally because we're within systems of oppression,
Yes.
right? So I think recognizing that can be a powerful way to rebuild your self-worth, find your value, connecting to who you were, all the little versions of yourself along the way
Yes.
as a child. Um, I know sometimes these jobs can bring up childhood trauma, right? And so that may be an opportunity for therapy to delve deeper into the wounds that may have presented themselves in the workplace, right? Um, Creativity has been a huge way of me reclaiming my value, by reminding myself of my worth. um, I think there's a healing power when you're able to create stuff and then put it out into the universe. Like I wrote a whole affirmations book, Cocoon, during this job experience, and that really helped me release the toxicity that was in my system, right, and get back to my gift of being a writer. So
Mm-hmm.
all these gifts that we have, just reminding yourself of them, getting into communities where other people are on similar healing journeys can be really helpful and
Mm-hmm.
therapy as well. Mhm.
And to allow yourself to play, right? To allow yourself to explore the new things about yourself, rediscover yourself, right? If you feel like, you have been broken down so harshly and so much and for so long, allowing yourself to step away from that, to reevaluate like who you are, what makes you special, dig into your talents, right? Ask other people who love you, ask people who value you, who see your value. Sometimes we're not able to see ourselves for who we are. You have to look to your circle, right? If you have a
Mhm.
great supporting circle, ask those people to validate you. Ask those people, what are the good things about you that they love, right? So that you can look at yourself from a different perspective. A lot of times we listen to the bad things we say about ourselves, right? We listen to the negative inner voice instead of the positive one. So it's a process
Mhm.
to to flip that, right? It's a process to negate those limiting beliefs because we've been deluged with them and you know dealt with them for such a long time.
Mhm.
So it is a process. We know it's not easy, but yes, it can be done, and if you just start the process step by step, you'll get there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hello, Miss Tonisha. Thank you for joining us. If you all are just joining us, if you have questions about how to pivot, how to identify if you are in a toxic job, how to get out in the toxic job, please uh, ask your questions in the chat. Um, so, I am a person who I was speaking with Marissa earlier. I think I'm a person of privilege. I've learned very on in my adult life, like not to ingest um, microaggressions at jobs. I didn't have to battle with them a long time before I made my exit out of the, I guess, job world. Um, but I do identify with the anxiety of not not being able to afford things, right? Not being poor, right? I do identify with the idea of lack, right? That we
Mhm.
have to always hustle and we working towards something, or you won't be able to afford to live, right? So what do we say to these women um, who are scared to leave, who say because of, they've never left before, because they've been had these
Mhm.
jobs for so long, because they have not thought outside of having a regular job. What do we say for people who, well, I can't do this, um, I have to pay bills, bills are a reality. How do we get them to start thinking that it can be done?
Mhm. I think by focusing on your skills may be helpful. Also, recognizing that we are in these systems, right? So, racial capitalism that
Hmm.
creates these conditions.
Hmm.
I think that's important to say. Um, but within these systems, as we have done throughout history, recognizing that we have skills, we are so highly skilled. And how have your skills served as a way to pivot before, right? Reminding yourself of your history
Right.
can be important. Um, recognizing that you don't deserve to be harmed, right? So, in any job that you're in any environment that you're in, knowing that you are not here to be harmed and having that understanding and letting that be kind of the I don't want to say push, but like guide
And
towards
knowing
something else.
there are jobs out here that won't harm you.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are
Mm-hmm.
other, you can put yourself in another place. We're
Mm-hmm.
not saying, we're not saying um that all jobs are bad, right? Showing you people who have done it, who have exited, showing you that it is possible, and showing you that all jobs are not, it's not a one fit, thing. You can find a gig, you can find an environment where you thrive, where you love, where you don't mind going to work. It is out there. It is
Mm-hmm.
out there if that's what you choose. And if you go to another job and it's still the same, then you can leave that one too. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about your choices. It's all about exploring what you can do to better your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the last video, you were interviewed and they said you're not a tree, right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
a tree.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. You can always get up and go. It's about having the I guess wherewithal to know that you are not supposed to be threatened, you are not supposed to stay in something that is harming you. You can leave, is what the summit is providing you with, is what the summit is saying to you.
Mm-hmm. Giving yourself that flexibility, yes.
Hmm.
And also, it's a messaging of oppression, right? That tells us there's nothing better out there. If
Hmm.
we look in any situation where we're experiencing toxicity and the message is stay and be harmed, right? That's a message of oppression that tells us that there's nothing better out there for us and that this is just our lot in life. And with
Yes.
the summit, I think we're pushing back against that very notion and idea that being harmed in the workplace is just what we should expect and we should endure and we should tolerate. Um, because, like the speakers at the summit, as you said, have made that pivot into something better, into something different, into a place where they're not being harmed, whether that be a job, another job, freelancing, entrepreneurship, early retirement, and just having that understanding, right? Getting to pushing back against that message of oppression that tells us to just stay and take it. No, we're rejecting that message.
It's just like any other relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any other, you don't stay in abusive relationships, you can always leave. It's a relationship. A job is a relationship. You can always sever it. You can always sever your ties. You can always go on. You don't have to bear the burden of that, any longer. So for anyone who is thinking about um, taking this jump, this leap from one job, from your toxic job to another, here is the link. It's also below in the chat. I hope that you all look into the summit, and I hope that you all look into Mrs. Price YouTube is wonderful. I am an avid follower. Please go follow her. Please look into her other videos. If you are healing from anything, she is a yeah, she is a really resource, a really wonderful resource for you to have. A person, she is transparent. I often talk about on this channel, I'm trying to get there, guys. I'm trying to get there, but people who are transparent with their stories, with their journeys, I applaud them. She holds no bars, no bars. She goes into her journey and being able to relate to what she's gone through. I'm telling you, will help you with yours, will help you with your journey, whether you're transitioning from a toxic job, whether you're finding your place as an introvert in this world, whether you're building your brand, whether you're becoming a freelancer. Um, she is the one to go to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, yes. Is there anything that we have not talked about that you want to get into before we go?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot.
I think we covered
We
a
love,
lot.
yeah, we would love for you to join us May 16th through 18th. There are privacy considerations in place. So if you do want to attend completely anonymously, there will be no attendees on camera. And you can
Mhm.
also change your name within the Summit platform after registering. If you want to type in the chat completely anonymously, you have that right to do so, because we do know that surveillance in toxic jobs can be a real thing.
Yes.
And I think both of us being toxic job survivors as co-hosts, we recognize that. And so I want to say that as well. But we look forward to you joining us May 16th through 18th, and replays will also be available if you can't attend some of the sessions live.
And guys, I will be in attendance. I cannot, especially for my friends who I've asked to come to this chat today. If you haven't said hello, I know you're here. Um, this is life affirming, it's life changing. If you are find yourself in a position right now where you are in a transition from one job to another, if you've been laid off, if you hate your job, please look at the sessions. Please click the link, look at the sessions they are providing. I've also provided other videos below this one, which talk about what the sessions will be about, talk about the other presenters that will be there. So it's just a good. I would not steer you wrong. This is something that you should look into if you are looking to create the workplace, the next life, your freelance career, the next life of your dreams. Please check her out.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for joining
much.
us.
Absolutely.
Marissa, stay with me for a second. You all have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.